Era number one, the early prohibitions, 1919 to the 1960s. In the early 20th century, Texas, like many other states, began to criminalize cannabis. Cannabis use became illegal in Texas in 1919. The state legislature passed a law that year that made the possession of loco weed, a term used for cannabis at the time, a felony offense. This move was part of a broader trend across the United States during the early 20th century, where many states were enacting laws to criminalize the possession and use of cannabis. The criminalization in Texas was influenced by a combination of factors, including but not limited to racial prejudices, societal fears, and misunderstandings about the effects of the plant. The law was also reflective of a nationwide movement that eventually led to the federal prohibition of cannabis with the passage of the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. As in Texas, across the USA, the 1920s saw the first laws against the possession and sale of marijuana. Why did politicians and anti-cannabis activists use the terms they use? Let's take a look. The use of terms like marijuana, weed, or pot instead of cannabis when criminalizing the possession of the plant has historical and socio-political roots. First of all, racial and cultural associations. The term marijuana became popular in the United States during the early 20th century and was often associated with Mexican immigrants. By using this term, some politicians and media outlets were able to create a connection between cannabis and minority communities, fostering fear and misunderstanding. This association played a role in the criminalization efforts. 2. Sensationalism and propaganda. The use of colloquial terms like weed or pot helped to sensationalize the perceived dangers of cannabis. During this era of reefer madness and similar anti-cannabis campaigns, these terms were used to create alarming narratives that portrayed cannabis as a dangerous and immoral substance. Number 3, distancing the medical use. The scientific term cannabis was well known in the medical community during this time, and the plant had been used for various medicinal purposes. By using different terminology, politicians and anti-cannabis activists could distance the plant from its medical applications and emphasize its recreational use, which was portrayed negatively. And the 4th reason, emphasizing criminality. By using slang or colloquial terms like pot, weed, or marijuana, lawmakers were able to emphasize the criminal aspect of cannabis possession and use. This linguistic choice helped to create a distinction between the legal, medical use of the plant and the illegal recreational use. In summary, the choice of terminology was not accidental, but a strategic effort to shape public perception, align with cultural biases, and support the political agenda of criminalizing cannabis. It reflects the complex interplay of racial, cultural, and political factors that influenced the legal status of cannabis during the 20th century. These laws were often racially motivated and targeted the black and brown minority communities as another tool to use in the Jim Crow laws era of our country. Historian James T. Campbell said, "The laws against marijuana were not about the drug itself, but about controlling certain populations." During the 1960s, the penalties became even more severe, reflecting the nationwide trend and the movement toward Richard Nixon's war on drugs.